I'm Becky Davidson, co-founder and president of Rising Above, and I also am mom to my adult son, John Alex, who happens to have special needs. And over the years as his mom and as a disability ministry leader, I've heard some pretty interesting things that have been said to families that have been incredibly hurtful. And most of the time, the comments are made and questions are asked. They're not intended to be insensitive or hurtful. It's just often in an attempt to try and connect. People often say things that end up being offensive or hurtful. So I asked some of my fellow special needs parents to share with me some of the things that have been said to them over the years that have been hurtful, and also share some things that have been helpful. So in this video, we're going to share some of the questions and comments that they shared with me that have been said to them. Some of these you're going to think to yourself as you hear them, surely someone did not really say that. But these are all actual comments that have been made to parents of children living with disabilities. So let's have a conversation about say this, not that. When a child is born with special needs, it's hard to know what to say to the new parents. You hear the news and you don't know how to respond when you see the parents for the first time. So here's an example of what not to say in that situation.
Oh, I am so sorry. This is going to be really, really hard.
Here's what you could say instead.
Congratulations! What a beautiful baby. You're going to be wonderful parents.
Think about what you would say to anyone who's just had a new baby and say that. Offer a kind word of encouragement just like you would with any other new parent. In an attempt to encourage a parent of a child with disabilities, you may think that it would be helpful to cheer them on with words like this.
Wow, parenting your child must be so hard. I don't know how you do it. I mean, I could never do that. You're a pretty amazing person to care for a child with such profound needs. But you know what they say? God only gives special kids to special people.
One mom shared that when people respond in this way when hearing the news of her son's diagnosis, it actually makes her feel more isolated and even more stressed. So here's something you could say instead.
I see you. You are great parents, and you know that your child is beautiful and created in the image of God.
Some adoptive parents of children with special needs know about the child's diagnosis at the time of the adoption, but others find out later as the child gets older. Here's what not to say to an adoptive parent of a child with special needs.
So did you mean to adopt a disabled child? I mean, what about your real kids? How do they feel about this? Well, the good thing is you knew what you were doing when you got into this.
Here's what you could say instead.
Adoption is such a beautiful thing. I'd love to hear about your adoption story sometime.
Many times in an attempt to want to connect with a family, you may think that it's helpful to say something like this.
You know, the other night I watched this documentary about autism, so I know what you're going through. By the way, have you heard what they're doing with jelly beans to heal? I mean, I read this article about it, so it's pretty amazing.
When you say those kinds of things, it can make parents feel like you think we don't know what we are doing. So instead, here's some things you can say. Sometimes the best thing is to not say anything at all. Parents shared that one of the most hurtful things is when people who don't have children with special needs try to compare their life to ours. It's often in an attempt to try to relate and connect with the parents. However, until you have walked a mile in the shoes of that family, you really can't understand the complexities of their life. So avoid saying things like this.
Oh, I know exactly how you feel. Last year, our son broke his leg playing soccer. He was in a cast for 8 weeks. I mean, we had to help him with everything. He even missed the first 4 weeks of basketball.
Instead, try this.
Hey, I see you. You're such a great dad. I love seeing the way you interact with your daughter.
You may have questions about a child's diagnosis or be curious about how the diagnosis impacts the child. But here's some things to not say.
So your child's diagnosis is terminal? I mean, how long is he expected to live?
I know. You're thinking, who would actually say that to a parent? But it happens more than you think. You may be curious and have questions, but unless the information is pertinent to your ability to best care for the child while they are with you, avoid asking those kinds of questions, especially in front of the child. Just because a child or adult with a disability is unable to communicate with words does not mean that they don't understand what you are saying. If you're genuinely curious and wanting to build a relationship with the family, instead, say something like this.
So tell me about your child. What are some of his favorite things? What does he like to do?
Okay, this next one is one of my biggest pet peeves as a mom. My son is an adult, but because he does not communicate using words and because he uses a wheelchair, people sometimes speak to him like he's a baby. And it comes across so condescending and disrespectful. So here's what not to say.
Hey, buddy, how are you? This is Mr. Steve right here. Look at you, you're getting so big. Love those tennis shoes you're wearing.
When speaking to an adult with a disability, talk to them respectfully, just like you would anyone else. Even if they can't reply with words, they can read your tone and your heart, and so can the parents. So try this instead.
Hey J.A., it's so good to see you, man. Hey, I like your new kicks.
You may encounter situations where you're not sure if a child has a disability or not. A child coming into your ministry may not have an obvious disability, such as Down syndrome, or need the use of a wheelchair. So you might question if they actually have a special need. But avoid saying things like this.
I mean, he looks so normal. Are you sure he has special needs?
Many children have hidden disabilities, and you might not know at first glance. A better response would be,
Hey, you have such a sweet family. We're so glad you're here. Tell me more about your kiddos. I'd love to know more about Sarah.
If you're not sure what to say, here are some things that parents shared that have been encouraging to them.
You are important to us, and you and your family play an important role in our church family.
Hey, I just want to remind you, I see you, God sees you, and God hears you. You're not alone.
I'm here to listen and help in any way I can.
I just want to remind you that you and your child are such an important part of our church family.
I love your child because she gives the best hugs.
You know what? I love your child because when he comes into the room, the joy on his face just brings it to a whole new level.
We are so glad you are here and thankful for the role you play in our church family.
You know what? You guys have such a beautiful family.
You have a beautiful family.